What's brappin', my fellow Nitro heads? I'm super busy with the rebuild, but it's come along pretty good. My workbench is a huge mess as usual. When I do rebuilds, it's always a gigantic freaking mess. But I just wanted to take some time out and show you guys this engine. So a quick little backstory behind this engine. This is actually my buddy's Protek Samurai V2 Nitro engine out of his Low C8T, and basically he does the same as I do. Is every year in the wintertime we take our vehicles apart, strip them down, see what they need, go out and buy the stuff. So first thing we started out with is his engine. So we took it apart and it looked not bad at first, but then we were turning it over and the bearings really didn't feel quite right. So what I did was all I did was I took the back plate off and I grabbed a little Q-tip and I swabbed it around inside this little crank passage here. I just swabbed it around, and like, look at all the dirt and grossness on his on this little Q-tip here. I don't know if it's focusing or not, but it just had dirt and gunk on it. So we took it apart, and it turns out the thing needs bearings. What a surprise. But this engine's not that old at all. Like, this engine has maybe 3 gallons through it. Bearings are finished. The front bearing felt okay. I don't have the bearings with me. He took them home with him, but this is just a bearing for reference. I grabbed something, like I grabbed the screwdriver, and it fits perfectly in this bearing here with no plate whatsoever. And I was jiggling it like I was jiggling it around, and like the friggin' bearing was like wobbling around. See how this one's like nice and tight? I can barely move it. This other one was like jig, like you can wobble it, and it was nasty. It was finished. And the rear bearing, again, this isn't the rear bearing out of this engine, but like I took it out and it was like super crunchy. Like, it was stiff and crunchy. So he's ordering himself some bearings. But one thing I think what caused this engine some harm was he likes to run in very dusty conditions, and he doesn't service his air filter much. So I think a bunch of dust got to the engine. Like, here's his air filter back here. Like, it doesn't look too bad, but you can definitely see some dirt was getting in. So I made him a deal. As you can see, my parts are wearing down pretty good, but I made him a deal. I bought a pack of these air filters. I told him I'd give him one if he promised he'd buy one of these. Like, just protect your motors, everyone. Protect your motors. Like, he's got, that engine's like $600 Canadian. They don't make them anymore. They have like the V3 out now, but that's like a $600 motor in Canadian funds. And like, don't trash your engines, guys. Just protect your investment. Clean your air filters like once or twice. Toss them out and just keep replacing them. Run outerwears. Another thing, if I may suggest, is when you're buying new bearings for your engines, what I like to do is buy a ceramic rear and a steel front, double shielded. The reason why I prefer double shielding, people are like, no, run single shield because it's freer and all that. Well, listen, people, if, not saying it would, but if dirt gets in behind the seal, it can easily just blow through the other side, which is one of the things I think happened to this. And if it's a ceramic bearing, ceramic, believe it or not, wears faster than steel. Think about it. Why do people run steel bearings on the car? Well, first off, they're cheaper, but if dirt gets to ceramic bearings, they're finished. They don't last unless they're free of debris and have a constant stream of oil. Ceramic bearings will last longer than steel, and they'll be smoother. So, like I say, this is just my opinion now, run a ceramic rear bearing and a steel front, double shielded. Now that we have that out of the way, let's start with the block. I started cleaning the block, that's why I had it in a bag. So the block is pretty decent on this engine. This engine, by the way, is OS based, if you guys don't know. Protek have 2 engines out right now. They have the LS5 and the Protek Samurai. The Protek Samurai is made by OS, and the LS5 is made by Novarosi. So the block is pretty nice. Bearings, I was a little disappointed, but again, it's not really the bearing's fault. The crank is very nice on this thing. It's DLC coated, which stands for diamond light coating. So what's great about DLC coated cranks is basically it never wears. Like if you have a old engine with a DLC coated crank, those engines are rebuilders. You can rebuild them, and they'll last. The cranks, because what goes bad with the cranks is the crank pin. They wear out, and like say for example, if you replace the rod, they're still loose because on the thrust side of the rod, it wears also. So the DLC coated cranks, they don't wear. And next, we can see this thing is balanced and slugged, which is sweet. That's another reason why this engine runs super smooth. It's also crank filled. That's a huge advantage over like regular cranks. Like here's this crank, for example. This one does not have a fill, and it's not as efficient as filled cranks because fuel goes down this passage right here, and with a crank fill, so basically a crank fill is they drill the crank out. They drill it somewhere around here. It's hollowed out to about around here. So the crank is lighter, so less rotating mass. Your engine can spool up a lot faster. And then they fill it with a lighter material as well as it's ramped. So it's got a straight shot into the engine, as opposed to non-DLC coated cranks. It kind of hits this bump, goes down, and then out. Nowhere near as efficient as the other one. Some engine modifiers will actually drill and fill your crank for you, so that's pretty sweet. That's pretty nice. It's based off of the XZB, I believe. The only thing that they really changed between the V2 and the V3 Samurais is the carburetor's different and the head's different. I believe the timing and I think the stroke is slightly longer too. Don't quote me on that though. Let's take a look at this nice piston. The piston didn't take any damage at all. This piston's still very nice. Burns pretty clean. This thing did get a little hot, which is to be expected. One thing I was able to tell though, you guys might not be able to see, but I did see very minor scoring up top. Maybe you guys can see. I don't think it wants to focus. But I'm not really worried about it because I can't feel them with my fingernails, so still good. Back plate, it's just a back plate. Just had the little notch here, and the feel had plenty of oil. See, there's still oil left over. I don't think this thing had an oil after. Don't quote me. Oh, and the sleeve, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure this is like the same basic sleeve design that OS has been using since like 2010. And they're winning. You know, to prove how similar these sleeves are, I think I'm gonna pull the sleeve out of my brand new OS Max 21XZB and see what you guys think. There you go, people. Check this out. They pretty much all OS motors, pretty much nowadays, are all 3-port. They're all based off the same port. They're the same porting, just slightly different. They just change the porting and the timing. They're pretty much based off the same thing. The button, it's a head button. Carburetor, it's pretty nice because this thing's insulated. I have it capped off here, but as you can see, it is aluminum inside. Very like nice and smooth in there. Comes with a 6.5 mil Venturi. Wow, why does this camera not want to focus today? It's got 6.5 mil Venturi. I do believe this is like the 21J2 carb. Don't quote me. High, low, mid. This carburetor does have a mid on it, which is pretty nice because you can actually really get this thing dialed in, and this thing does run very good. So that's pretty much it with this engine. Oh, this is the pipe he was running on it. It's the 2090. He got like the complete set. He got the 2090 and the 75 header. It needs new springs though because he did do a little bit of a newbie mistake. He was trying to get the exhaust off because it was stuck at the end, and he grabbed it from the header and pulled, so he stretched his springs out. As you can see, there's that movement there, and he stretched the spring out. So he's gonna need new springs and gaskets, but that's to be expected. Yeah!